Yo, 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 what's up? My name is Terry Berry.
And I'm Michael Nelder.
And we are here with
No ID.
And we have another special guest for you. We have Miss Donyelle Jones.
Hey.
What's up? Miss Donyelle Denise. Which one do you rather be addressed by?
Now, Donyelle Denise.
Donyelle Denise is a dancer, choreographer, director, actress, and singer, and educator. All them hats in one.
I am from Los Angeles, California. Not common, but I am from LA.
LA native.
Okay, I'm not an LA native, but I just said West Side.
I think the one that I picked up first was the dancer hat. I think I've always danced. Even before I knew I wanted to make dance my career, it was just something I always did and the thing that made me the most happy.
And how old were you when you started training?
When I started training, seriously training, was my freshman year in junior college. So I started dancing in church in junior high school. In high school, I was on the dance team.
Yeah.
And then when I got into college, I was like, you know what? I've always wanted to go to a studio, but my parents wouldn't pay for it. They're either dance team or studio. They're we're not paying for both. And back then, being naive and not realizing that dance was going to be my path, it was oh, well, I was the only black girl on dance team. That's how I was known at school. I was the captain. I was like, I'm not giving that up. So
I'm here.
It's not just the act of doing and dancing ballet. It also there's a face to ballet as well.
Oh, yeah, there's definitely a face to ballet. I mean, it's derived in European culture, you know what I mean? So it's just and even for, I would say Caucasian or white people, if you don't have a certain look, a certain body type, a certain type of facility, things that your body can do naturally, a lot of young ballet dancers do things to their bodies to they literally try to keep themselves from going through puberty. You know what I mean? They don't want boobs. They don't want hips. They want to remain as thin as possible, almost as square as possible. They, it's how flexible can I get? How strong can I get? But I need to look like this. And if I don't look like this, then, it's over. And back in the day, it was true, because the thing is not only within dance, there's uniformity where everybody has to dance the same and do the same musicality, hit the same steps, but with ballet, to be a part of a core, not only did they want you to dance the same, but they almost wanted it to be unless you were the principal, you guys all needed to just kind of blend. Everybody needed to kind of have that same look. And it was a hard mold, to break. And I've always been a thick girl, you know what I mean? So for me, I was told that this was something that I could never have. Yeah, I mean, going back to what we just talked about, that was probably the first time I ever felt celebrated for who I was as a person, what I had to offer dance. And during that time, I was probably 80 pounds, if not smaller than I am right now. And I was a size 7, which is a size 5'7" is a normal size for the average chick. But they pin me as the big girl.
That's crazy, really?
That's how they used me on the show. That was my story. You know what I mean? But it was my story, because it was I was always told that I wasn't small enough. I was always told I wasn't this or I wasn't that. And it always had to do with my physical appearance. But at the same time, even on So You Think, it was top 20 at that time. Now it's top 10, but it was top 20 at that time. So there was 10 guys and 10 girls. And, all the girls were a size 0 to a 3. And I was a size 7. So then me standing then on TV, you always look bigger than what you do in actual life. So me standing next to like size 0 to 3 and then I'm like jumping to a size 7, yes, I look like much bigger than the other like 18 girls that are standing next to me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then people would see me in real life and they're like, you're like a regular size. And I'm like, I know. I did. I killed myself to try to be like small. And even when I was like at my smallest, they were like, could you lose like 10 more pounds? And I'm like, yo, I'm killing myself just to be here. Like, I'm killing myself. You know what Do you know what I mean? So it's like for me to be what I was like, yo, I'm doing everything in my power. You know what I mean? To maintain this. And then, you know, I was on tour with Game and Snoop Dogg. It was like Game's first album, and we did this like European tour, and on that tour I ended up getting food poisoning 3 times. And so finally I was just like, yo, I'm not eating any more of the like food they were feeding us because I kept getting sick, and the only thing I trusted was fast food. Mickey D's, those double arches. I was like, I know that. I was like, I know those double arches, you know what I mean? And so I just started eating like a lot of fast food, and on tour I ended up gaining a bunch of weight. It got back to my agent, and when I came back, it was like this huge deal that, you know, I was on this tour and I gained weight, and it was this and it was that, to the point where like the choreographer, who is a very prominent choreographer, like called me to tell me like how disappointed she was in me, and you know, I've given you all this work and this great opportunity, and like you're throwing it in my face. And that was like the deciding factor that I was like, you know what, at this point, like I've done everything I've kind of sought out to do. Like I've been in music videos, I've now been on tour, I've done award shows. I think I'm about to go back to school, because I was like, I'm tired of like fighting. Like I felt like I was fighting the industry. Do you know what I mean? And it was like one of my best friends now, she and I became each other's bookends, because we, at the time, like nowadays it's like, if you don't have curves, if you don't have like kind of like, if you don't look fit, it's like that's what the trend is now. You know, they don't want that, but it's like that, or I'm saying that's what they want actually now. But then back like 15, 16 years ago, it was like, if you weren't like model thin, like if you didn't look like a model, it was like, can you? I think it's up to interpretation. I think it depends on the piece. I think it depends on the story. I think there's so many that there's no like, that's not a cut and dry answer. Do you know what I mean? There's too many variables, there's too many elements. I think it depends on the story that you're trying to convey, because it's just like, even within like, you know, outside of dance, like just regular stories, I'll say like using like Annie, for instance, like the story of Annie, the orphan Annie, like when Jamie Foxx remade it and made Annie a black girl, you know what I mean? It would turn into this like huge thing, because people had pinned it in their mind that like, no, she's this little white redhead girl that, and it's like, well, no, I mean, because of the type of story it is, like, it's just an orphan called Annie. So why can't she be black?
Right.
Or why can't she be Asian? Or why is she's just the story is of an orphan. Now, if the story had something to do with like, you know, when we talk about like getting into like, you know, cultural appropriation, like appropriation.
You got it.
But like, you know, when you look at like my dad, he loves cowboys. And I'm finding as I get older and I become more knowledgeable, and he watches cowboys 24/7, and I sit down and I watch the cowboy, and the Indian people are like painted white people. I'm like, but they're supposed to be Indian. Right. So why couldn't you just hire somebody that was Indian? Right.
You see a lot of things in terms of the way that people try to tell stories, and it's important also who's telling the story and like the intention behind the story.
But at the end of the day, it's just like, if it can be an open slate, just let it be an open slate.
Right.
But if it is something that's specific. Like if there's like specific guidelines, this person needs to look like this because of these reasons, then find that type of person to do that thing. So I think when it comes to dance, there are feminine characteristics, there are masculine characteristics, but a lot of times those same characteristics are put on top of movement that is the same for both male and female. So just like one move can be done the same way 10 times differently according to intention. Well, I mean, if that's your relationship, who am I to judge? Do you know what I mean? Would I do that? I don't think so. Do you know what I mean? But I was also raised by like people who were very like traditional and very like old school. Like, I mean, my parents are like in their 70s, you know what I mean? So for me, like, there's a thing about a man courting a woman. Now, unlike my mom worked, but to this day, like, my mom was the type that like she worked all day, came home, cooked, cleaned, and I was looking at my dad like, you ain't gonna help at all? Like,
right.
I'm gonna do no, not at all. Okay, cool. You know, you know what I'm saying? So it's just like where I saw that, and I had to make that decision that like, yeah, that's not gonna be me. Like, I get it, I get why, but. And when it comes to like my husband, it's funny because like when we're at home, we do things for each other. Now, if we're at my parents' house, my mom will be like, well, did you fix Ty's plate? And I'm like, I'll go ahead and do that. You know what I mean? Because I just, it's like, that's fine because I don't mind doing it. Yeah. But it's just interesting because, everybody has different relationships. So I'll say, like, for me and my husband, we were engaged for 5 years. You know what I mean? And people were like, is something wrong? Are you guys okay? And it's like, no, we're good. When we decide we're going to get married, we'll get married. We didn't intend on being engaged for 5 years. But, like, the 4th year that we were married, we were like, yo, it's time. Like, let's do this. And then so it took us a year to plan and, like, make everything manifest itself. But if that's your marriage, then that's your marriage. I've had an interesting journey, and my journey hasn't been easy. It never has. And I just recently, battled breast cancer. So I was in treatment for 1 year and 9 months. So I'm just like 4 or 5 months shy of like that treatment. So I'm just now getting back to work like 3 weeks ago and starting to create again. And then, but again, everything is ordained. It's like the quintessential, like, what's for you is for you, because after all of that happened, like literally 8 weeks post like cancer treatment, I was on stage with Janet Jackson at the Billboard Awards. You know what I mean? And when I auditioned, there was like 20,000 people that auditioned. My chest was still burnt from radiation. You know what I mean? So it's just like I had no business there, but there was something that I was just like, again, is that like gut thing. And it's just like, to me, that's one thing I can offer people. Like, listen to like that gut feeling that whatever you can't let go of in your mind, it's for you. Like, when you can't stop thinking about it, no matter what you do, it's for you. Because, I had just gotten out of treatment. I was still in a lot of pain. Janet made this announcement, and my first thought was like, oh, I want to go. I haven't wanted to go to an audition in like 8 years. And then after everything I've just currently been through, for that audition to happen, my first thought is like, oh, I want to go. But Janet was my why. Janet was why I wanted to like not necessarily pursue being a concert dancer and do the commercial world. She was like, I want to dance for her. So that's why I want to do commercial dancing. She was my why. So after everything I've been through, and I've auditioned for her 3 times before and didn't book the job. So like, I haven't danced professionally in like years. It's been like 5 or 6 years since I've danced professionally. And I just had that whole ordeal with, stage 3 breast cancer and like battling that and going through treatment. And I'm just now coming out of that. And then like my why is like having her first audition in 10 years. And I was like, yeah, I was like, and I laughed initially because I had the thought, and I was like, really, Donyelle? Like you can barely walk. Like, what are you talking about going to audition for Janet? And I literally called my sister because I talked to her about everything. I called her and I was like, hey, call me back. I want to talk to you about something that's like kind of crazy. I'm still laughing. Go to sleep, wake up to a text message from my sister, and she sent me the same clip that Janet had her announcement. And I was like, okay, there's something in that. And I didn't think that I would end up booking the job, but I knew that I needed to go to the audition because I knew that there was something there for me. And yeah, so I don't know what it is. All I know is that was just confirmation to me that I wasn't done with dance, because I was like, oh, maybe it's time for me to like really actually like shut the dance door, and like, because God put like a strong like reset on my life. So I'm pretty much like starting over.
Well, as we wrap up, I just want to thank you for being the lioness that you are, and we pray that you continue to feed us your light throughout your journey, girl, because I mean, we never know. We just never know who we are and where we stand in someone's eyes, and I really feel like someone watching is going to pull something from this that'll keep them going. So thank you for being transparent like you always are. And I appreciate your time, Donyelle.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate you guys.
Absolutely. Well, that's it. My name is Tibber Berry.
And I'm Michael Nelder.
And that was No ID Meat and Potatoes interview. That's the first time I used it in our interview, actually. Meat and potatoes. I got it from my pastor. You know, when you get into like the root of the sermon. So that's what we wanted to call like the interview series, like the meat and potatoes.
Okay.
Meat and
Does it taste good?
Yeah.
It always tastes good.
Well seasoned very well. But that's us signing out. Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll be back for some more fire and inspirational interviews.